couple years, and I've been doing JavaScript and other various things for a long time. And the last 4 months I've been doing Objective-C and Swift and learning Cocoa Touch, and I really do enjoy it. This is not me trying to talk you into not building a native app. This is me telling you that I've done a little bit of both and how it went. Okay, so you will have to choose your own adventure. I do mostly work on AngularJS projects, and the client I am working for is glamhive.com, and they are built their whole front end on Angular. And so when it came time to build something that was a mobile app, we were like, well, let's see how we can reuse anything. So that was kind of the goal, and we did a pretty good job. So I'll go through kind of how that went and everything, and so I am going to just talk about the Ionic framework. But first, I'm going to talk about Cordova, because people get really confused about what's Cordova and what's PhoneGap and like what's Ionic, and then there's jQuery Mobile and blah blah blah. So we're going to talk about PhoneGap or Apache Cordova first. So Apache Cordova is an open source version of PhoneGap. PhoneGap extends Cordova basically. PhoneGap is a trademark of the Adobe Corporation, and they build some tools that kind of are branded for PhoneGap. Okay, so Cordova and PhoneGap are the same thing. Like the plugins you write for Cordova will work with PhoneGap and vice versa. PhoneGap has some like build automation stuff that you can kind of tap into, and some other things. Cordova is just an Apache project. Okay. So what is Cordova? Cordova is basically kind of a wrapper around a web view. So on iOS, that's a wrapper around UI web view component, which is basically, Safari. It's WebKit. It has some. When it's made into a component, it works a little differently than when it's the browser. The browser is basically UI web view plus all the stuff you have, the bookmark things and blah blah blah. So basically Cordova is just a wraparound UI web view, and the wrapper comes in different flavors. You can get the iOS flavor or the Android flavor, and the basic concept is you build all your stuff in HTML and JavaScript, and then Cordova will package it up on iOS and package it up for Android, and then you can run it on a device as a native app. Okay, so out of the box, if you just install Cordova, it's going to come with Amazon Fire OS, Android, BlackBerry 10, Firefox OS, iOS, and Windows Phone. If you want any other wrappers besides those you can go kind of pull them in. For example, there's an OS X wrapper, so you can make desktop apps that are hybrid apps that use native stuff. And if you've ever used Slack, it doesn't use the Cordova OS X, but it's very similar if you ever use the Slack client. So let's just build a Cordova app to kind of get that out of the way, so you can see this is no Ionic. This is just Cordova, just a plain old Cordova app. So I am just going to be kind of, these are my, I don't do presentations with like slides and stuff. I went to a Edward Tufte thing, and he said just make notes and publish it. So that's what I do. So this is just available on Google Plus as a document, and you can download it, and this is like a stream of thought, and you can just pull what you want out of it. So yes. Yes. Bigger?
Pseudo making a sandwich.
Which one am I picking? Profiles. And let's try that one. Oh, whoa.
Now you have to profiles.
Oh.
If he selects that and then opens a new tab, it'll be fine.
Okay.
Now do Command T.
No.
How to iTab.
We'll just do it, it'll be okay. Okay, so I'm going to make an app, and let me see what apps I've made so I don't make another one. Okay, so So the first thing I did is install Cordova with npm. Okay, but I've already done that, so I'm not going to do that again. So I'm going to show you that I have Cordova installed. And I have 3.5, and I think 3.6 is the latest. But okay, so I already have a Cordova test, so I'm going to call this Cordova Ng, or yeah, I'll call it CincyNG. And it's going to create a project in Cordova CincyNG, so I'm going to go there. And I have some stuff here. So I have basically the platforms is where, like, if I say build iOS, it's going to put the iOS project there. If I say build Android, it's going to put the Android project there. Any plugins are going to get installed into the plugins. That's almost like an npm modules kind of folder structure that just like fills out with all the different plugins. And then www is where the basically the assets go. Okay, so we have something there. I do not have any platforms installed, so it's going to say, okay, you do not have any installed. The available ones are that list there. It's actually not even a complete list, so I'm going to add iOS. It will do some things, and then I will run the app. Just as is, it's going to be basically blank. So I did Cordova emulate iOS, so this is where I'm at right here. First time build.
Xcode requirements is green.
Yeah, Xcode. Yeah. Xcode and the command line tools for iOS. For Android, obviously, you have to have the Android SDK and etc. Because of the Android simulator, I'm not going to bother showing Android. It does work. I'm just going to show the iOS stuff because it's faster. Okay, so it fired up and it showed this. This is actually a web page, and we're going to actually kind of manipulate that. So. I'm going to open this up in IntelliJ. Okay, so I have a www folder and an index.html, and here's the here's basically all the stuff it put in to that index.html. I'm just going to replace it. Okay. And rerun it. You can see it says hello CincyNG way up there. Yeah. So just stashing that, just shoving that HTML in there. So it's just a container for HTML. Now everything that I put in there can kind of just be whatever, Android or Angular or whatever. So I can also be real specific about the things I do that I can do. I think I can just do that to do on iPad. Yeah, so I get an iPad 2. I'll let it start up. There it goes. So now it's emulating in an iPad. And again, all I did is add a target for that. And so there's a few other targets you can do, like say I want a 4-inch Retina or just a 4-inch iPhone or whatever, and it'll kind of fire it up. Okay? That's Cordova. It just holds JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Okay? Not going to get into plugins and stuff like that till later, but we will kind of go through that. So does Cordova make sense? Okay? At least a little bit. If I wanted to open up the actual project for that, let's do. Oh no, I don't want to do that. Open. Okay. go to the platforms and open up the actual Xcode project. Okay, and now I'm in Xcode project world, and if you want to, you can work on HTML and CSS and stuff here, just right in the project. Okay, I don't do that. I don't. I think that's crazy. That's just flat out crazy. Okay, so anyway, so that's Cordova. Wraps up whatever you put into it. It can be deployed to the App Store. It can be deployed just through test flight. You know, if you want to distribute it, it does requiring like a provisioning profile. It's just like any other app. It just holds CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. Okay, everybody's cool. Okay, so what is Ionic? Okay, so Ionic is just an Angularjs framework. And when Ionic was first born, the idea was, let's make all these components and stuff, and then we'll have people implement them in their kind of like framework of choice. So they were like, let's do Angular, and then somebody else will do Ember, and somebody else will do Backbone. It's just Angular. No, there's no more plans to do any other things at all. So, it's AngularJS, uses UI router. The Angular version it is on is like a 1.2.17, which is a little bit of an older version, and that's just because they're trying to get 1.0 all the way final and don't want to add any variables. Okay, they even made me a presentation that I can show you, so I didn't have to write one. So this is actually really nice. We'll spend 2 minutes going through it. So they say, you know, the downside of native is it requires a lot of proficiency and a lot of code bases. It's timely and expensive development, and diminishing returns. I don't know what they mean by that. They kind of have been promoting, and this is a company called Drifty that has open sourced the Ionic framework. HTML5 wrapped in a native layer, that's Cordova. Direct access to native APIs, and the Ionic framework has contributed a lot of Cordova plugins. So what do you need? You need an open source framework, all the native style components and so forth, and stuff beyond just jQuery widgets. So Ionic. It works with AngularJS and not anything else. It uses some of the best well-written Sass I've ever seen. It's very easy to get into and figure out where you want to customize things. It's really, really well done. If you've ever written a website or anything that you expect to run on like mobile Safari, like performance can be like one of your biggest problems, and you think, well, I'm going to throw this like heavy framework on there and try to implement all these features. Angular, for one thing, if you build apps the right way, can be very, very fast. And if you go to kind of even the next level where you're implementing some of the browser level stuff yourself, it can be even better. So that's what Ionic kind of does for you. So it comes with a set of icons that are really nice and look good in apps. And so they kind of go through the components. So you get kind of lists, which if you've ever done iOS, which the Cocoa Touch components are things like there's UI table view. Ionic comes with a list framework, I guess you could call it, directives and services and stuff that work like that. It actually has, instead of ng repeat, it has this thing called collection repeat. And so if you've ever done the table view stuff on iOS, what it does is for every row it calls you and says, well, how tall do you want it to be? What goes into it? Stuff like that. It does a similar thing. It actually does collection repeat, and it will say, okay, I'm going to show row 31, how tall is it? Stuff like that. And because it does that, it can determine what's in the scroll view and trim the DOM to use as little DOM space as possible, so that you're only actually rendering out what's in view, and that's really, really fast.
So is that essentially what
It's that plus tons of other stuff, yeah. So this is a pretty complete list here. So the ability to do all the kind of normal stuff you do with lists, like have editing and deleting and clicking down to lower levels and reordering and stuff. This is the thing about the collection repeat. It's a special directive they wrote instead of ng repeat. If you ever used ng repeat, it's really heavy on watchers. So I wrote my app before collection repeat came out, and I used, I think it's called quick repeat, and it only uses one watcher. And you have to broadcast an event when the list changes. This is better than that, and I just haven't gotten a chance to switch over. Tab support, kind of a slide out side menu that's nice. The slide box, which is like you kind of push it over and it scrolls through things. So action sheet, which is an iOS looking type thing. Pull to refresh on any content. All your normal navigation plus like all the good stuff you get with UI router. So that's nice. Like events and whatnot. So I think this is the last slide. It comes with a command line tool, Ionic, and this is new. And I had done this presentation like 6 months ago, and when I did this presentation, it was like I was starting my project, and it was on like 0.8, I think is what it was on. So now they're 1.0 beta 13 or something, and they have this really slick command line tool, and we're going to give that a shot. It comes with some boilerplate templates, so you can say, I just want an app with a slide out, and whoop, it's like there. So it'll do a lot of fancy stuff with live reload. It'll do live reload on a real device, so you can just work, and then your phone's just like refreshing, and like it's nice. You can work really fast. Yeah, that's it. So MIT license, really good community, really great docs. One of the best things they have is kind of like a cookbook. It has tons of examples and stuff. So, okay, so there's that. Okay, so let's try to build a Cordova-based app with the Ionic framework. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. So, am I going too fast? Everybody okay? Everybody good? Okay. Okay. So npm install -g Ionic. I have done that. I can ask for a version. Okay, that's what I'm at. Oh, this is a new release, of course. Okay, so my choices are to say Ionic start. I can give the app a name, and then I get to pick a template. So I can say, give me a tabs, give me a side menu, or give me a blank. So since I did my whole presentation and planning with the tabs one, I'm going to do side menu because that's the funnest part about demoing stuff. And we'll call it and we'll see what kind of rabbit hole I go down. Oh, see. Oh, it's side menu. No. Yes. Okay. Would you like to overwrite this? Yes, I would, because the other one was not good. No. Failure. All right. What did I do wrong? Well, let's try the tabs, because that did work. Yes.
You tried both.
Well, it might not be. You know what? Let's just try.
Oh, slide menu. Yeah.
Let's try without space. I may have just written it down incorrectly. Yay, there we go. Okay, so it was side menu. Sorry. Okay, so here I am. And when I had originally gone over the Cordova app, we looked at the folders, and you'll notice a similarity here. I have a www folder, I have a plugins folder, It doesn't have a platforms folder yet because that will be added on when I add a platform. So this is similar. This is going to be similar to the Cordova. They just basically take the Cordova template and kind of start layering stuff on top. Okay. So let's add.
Mike,
Yeah.
do you have to run Ionic in Cordova?
You can run it as you could, since it's just like HTML and stuff. You could run it like as a website. So if you wanted to have just a mobile site, people do that. Yeah.
Cordova just gives you a native app.
Cordova gives you the ability to install it as a native app. That's right. So, good question.
But doesn't it also give you the things like access to the camera?
Right. You wouldn't have that stuff through the browser. Okay, so I added the iOS support. I'm just going to run it so you can see it. Yes, I know that's deprecated. I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay. So this is Ionic, and this is Angular, and it's running in Cordova. I can click on things. Here's my slide out with different pages. Okay. Stuff like that.
And those are all just UI router routes.
We're going to look at it a little bit, and then so what we're going to do next is look at like what came out of the box, and then we are going to add another page that will let us take a picture and see it. So we use the camera plugin. Okay? Yay.
Super fun.
Yes, and everybody has to yell when they see me do something wrong. So, all right. So this is your chance for my frequently asked questions. Kind of, is everybody okay with what we're doing here, where we're building HTML and CSS? And I can go through some. I've had about 100 conversations with people about the app I'm building, and they're all like, "Wait, what? No, what?" You know. So.
Building an app, is that Swift?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I've got this commonly asked a set of questions in there if we need to stop. So otherwise I'm gonna get started here. Close this other one. Okay. I'm not gonna set up. You can. By default, the Ionic CSS is all pre-compiled, and if you want to bring in the Sass, you can, and then you can extend it, or you can start overriding all the variables and things like that. I'm not going to bother with that today. It's pretty simple. Okay, but I have the project open here, and I'm gonna do the live reload stuff because that's really fun. I think it's just live reload. So I'm going to start the emulator with live reload on. Okay. And then it looks like it shows me what view? The playlist view? Okay, so let's go dig into the app that they are building. And here's the playlist, right? Let me just kind of lay this out a little bit. How much do I have over here? So oh, sorry, yeah. Okay. What's an instrument? My daughter plays clarinet. Okay, and there's clarinet now is here on the bottom. That one, sorry. Yeah, so start it up in simulator, just like in a browser, right? It's like if you ever worked in a browser and you have live reload, it's awesome because it's just like, it's like clicking by as you change things, especially like when you're doing CSS, it's really handy. Prior, like a long time ago, 3 months ago, what I would have to do if I wanted to do this in an emulator is I would have to do my stuff, not compile it, but I'd have to run like Ng template and all that kind of stuff, build the iOS project, and then run it in the emulator. So most of the time I just work in Chrome because that's a lot easier. But now, with the live reload server running, this is just like immediate feedback. I can just do stuff and the page refreshes. So very, very handy. And if I were to run this on my phone with live reload on, I could start it up and watch it in code, and it would just immediately change. So that's very, very handy. So what has Ionic given me? As you can see, I get my slide out menu, my all these directives and everything. So let's kind of poke around and see where those kind of live and what they are. Okay, so when you go to get the Ionic framework, you're going to get like a bunch of CSS or SAS. You're going to get all these directives that are Angular directives, but you're also going to get a bunch of services, including things like there's an Ionic Framework service that does stuff. You can say, okay, when Ionic's fired up, then do these things. And Cordova, and Scott, you had asked about this, may or may not be there. Like, you may not be running in Cordova, you might be running Cordova. You're going to have to code to handle that if you're going to try to make it work both ways. In this case, they're saying, oh, do I have Cordova? If so, I want to use the keyboard plugin to ensure that the keyboard is hidden. So, basically. The next thing they're going to do is check to see if the status bar plugin is available, and if they are, they're going to set it to the default style. Otherwise, the status bar is not visible by default. So,
The window Cordova, is that waiting for the Cordova ready?
it's not this. The Ionic platform ready wraps up the Cordova ready, so you don't have to worry about that. Ionic actually does wrap up a lot of the Cordova stuff. So, okay, so then. This is, if you've done UI router, this is going to start to look very familiar. I have defined all my states with their various routes, app, search, browse, and those are probably, and because I can't see the HTML over here, but those are probably mapping to all the parts over here. Yes, search, browse, playlists. Oops. I'm kind of like turned around with the view and the template to render. So pretty basic, right? And then if I look at the controllers, there's not going to be anything really complicated here. You will see like here's a service for the Ionic modals, and if you've ever done like Angular Strap or Bootstrap UI stuff with Angular and Bootstrap, there are services like this that is like the modal service, right? And you say, okay, modal, I want you to show and use this template and use this controller, right? Well, it's the same deal here. So it's a similar kind of like comfort level you'll have. And so you can see how they're kind of creating an instance of a modal and displaying it, and then handling the close and the login and so forth. And then they just have a couple simple Angular controllers down below that for the playlists. So, fair enough regarding that? Okay. Okay. Oh, where am I? Okay. Let's come back to the tests. Okay. And then we'll, so first thing we're going to do is, I talked about the plugins, which is like the most powerful part of all this stuff. Let's make sure we can get to that part of it, okay? So I'm going to add like a route and an option. I'm going to add a route and an option to the list that's like camera or something, and we'll take a picture and we'll see it. So you got to add a route over here, and I'll probably just do it kind of like in this area. Oops. I'll just call it camera. Okay, so I need a template for my camera, so I'm going to do a new template. I'm just going to leave it blank, and I need a controller for it, which I'll put at the bottom here. And I need a controller. Oh, sorry. Controller. this isn't going to do anything yet. I'm just going to get it all added. And over here in the menu, whoop, there we go. Over here in the menu, this is the template for this side menu. Okay, so you can see it's the side menu, and it has a list in it of each of the items. So we're just going to add a 5th one down here at the bottom, and that's going to be camera and camera. And hopefully we're having some luck. Yeah, good. That laid out better. Okay. And I need to add a little bit of stuff in here. I need to add an ion view, which I always forget to add. I'm just going to copy this one and pare it down. So this is leave that. As header, sure. And we're going to take a picture. Okay, so set up my route, set up my template, set up the link to my route, and now I have a place. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add the camera plugin. Then I need to add the, there's a service that I can use that'll take a picture. I have to add since Angular uses dependency injection, I have to inject that dependency. And then I'll be able to use the API to take a picture, and I'll get back a file URI that I can display. Okay. So we got to come back out here to the command line, and I'm going to stop this for a second, and I'm going to do, I'm going to look at Ionic again, because it has the ability to install plugins. So I'm going to say Ionic plugin, and it's going to list the plugins. So I can do Ionic plugin. I think I can do a search from here for camera. So see what plugins are available for camera. Okay, so I got a bunch here. There's a barcode scanner. Here's the out-of-the-box Cordova camera. Some other camera plugins that various people have registered. There's a kind of like it's called Plugman is the name of the service that people can register their Cordova plugins at. So I'm going to say Ionic plugin add, and then I'm going to ask for the org Apache Cordova camera plugin. Okay, so it pulled it and it installed it, which is great. If I go look over here now at my plugins, I'll see it there. There it is. And it's going to pull in the source code for all these, all the platforms that it supports. So if you can't see that well, it's BlackBerry, Android, Firefox OS, iOS, Ubuntu, Windows, and Windows Phone. Okay. So I did that. Next thing I have to do is to add something called Ng Cordova. So what Ionic has done is basically start another open source project that wraps up all the Cordova plugins as Angular services. A lot of the Cordova plugins were not written with promises, and come on, I mean, really. So so what they've done is basically they have an open source project called Ng Cordova, and it will give us the camera service, and instead of doing just like callbacks and stuff, it does promises. So we're going to want to use that one. I'm going to clear that. So I'm going to install that with Bower. It's going to, because the Ng Cordova has a different, I think it has dependencies that are a little bit different. It's, in a second, it's going to say, wait a second, what version of Angular do you want to use? So I am going to say that I want to use the one that is associated with Ionic beta 13, because that's the one I have installed. Okay, so okay, so I have that spelling, and I am going to take those. Okay, so I have added the Ng Cordova, but I need to include it in my page here. So I'm going to add it right above, and I don't need two of these. But I'm going to add it to the index.html. So now I'm using the Ng Cordova API, and because this is Angular, I need to add a dependency. So I have that here. And for, I'm just going to type it in. For Angular, like newbies, Angular uses dependency injection. So even though I brought in a library for Ng Cordova, I don't have it exposed to Angular until I actually add it to the module. You know what? I probably should have put that over here. Yeah. Okay, so here's all the controllers, and I've exposed the Ng Cordova plugins to that. So now that I have that, I can inject this service called Cordova Camera, okay, into the controller. Okay. And we're going to restart that. Oh, what did I have to do to... I had a problem with this last time. I think it's because I had something open that kind of locked it.
This always happens to me.
Yeah. That you are standing up in front of people coding and something messes
Not
up, or
standing up, but just like installing plugins doesn't always fill in the right characters.
I think that what I did last time is I actually had to remove it and add it again. Oh, thank you. You get a gold star. Oops. Yeah. See if that fixed it. No.
Telling you which spin right there?
Let me open that project up.
This is maybe close. Oh, no.
If I bring it into Xcode, that usually does help a little bit. I really actually haven't had this problem much. I don't know what changed that I did that caused it. Which one was it? Ionic, CincyNG, platforms. Oh, I remember what I did. Okay, so when I had this happen, I did Ionic platform remove iOS, and then Ionic platform add iOS. Okay, and then build. Yay! All right. So maybe an ordering thing that's happening there. Remember that. Next time I'm standing up in front of people. All right, so I have that added now. Okay, so I now have the plugin there, and we're going to fire it up. Just make sure it starts up okay. And I can get to the camera. Okay, so everything's wired up. Ionic isn't like, hey man, I can't find this camera service thing you're looking for. So Ionic's happy, or Angular's happy. That was the wrong project. And yeah, so it's finding the Cordova camera service. So now we want to add the ability to actually take the picture. So let me close a couple of these things I'm not using anymore. And we'll add a button. Take a picture. That's ugly. Better. Awesome. Okay. And Ng click. Take a picture. And I'm going to add a function called take a picture to the scope. Okay. So now I need to do stuff in here. So because I'm nervous, I will copy some of this code that I had written before. Oops. See, that's a good way to do it. Okay. All right. So basically, with the Cordova camera service, and this is just an exposed native plugin, it takes some options. I'm going to say get picture, and I'm going to pass in the options. And when it's done, it's going to say, okay, here's your image data. Okay. So because of that, the options that I pass in are like super important. So I'm going to pass in the quality of the image I want. So it'll pull a raw image out of, like, if I ask for a raw image from the camera roll, it'll actually change the quality from 100% to 75%. And I'm going to ask for the actual file URI. My other option is to ask for the base 64 encoded image, which is huge, and you would never want to put on the scope. Trust me. Do not put a base 64 encoded on the scope. It's just like, oh my gosh. And so I'm going to ask for a file URI from the photo library, which is the camera roll. And I'm going to allow the person to edit it. And I'm going to ask for it to be 100 by 100. And I can ask for JPEG or PNG. The popover options have to do with if you want to show an overlay of the camera options. I've never had to use it before. So, and then save the photo album. If I said true, then any editing I did, that new photo would be saved to the camera roll. But I don't want to do that. So then I'm going to get the picture back, the image data, which is just it's going to be a file URI. It's going to say file : / and then I'm going to display that in an image tag. So I'm going to say image ng source equal, what did I call that thing? Image URI.
So that's actually getting served up.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's an HTTP.
Gives me a handle to the file and permission.
So it's like file : /.
Yep. And then I can read in the file. There's actually a file API. I can read in the whole file. So when I go to like post an image, I have to read in the whole file and stream it out as a post data, right? So there's a file access way to do that. So. Okay. I'm just gonna put some style on that. Let's see. So, and. And so my image is going to go there. There's no image, right? When I sort of picture, I'm going to say the app would like to access your photos. I don't think, okay, good, it came with some. All right, so we'll take, there's a cute dog there, and we'll just, sad thing, we'll just zoom in on your sad little face. And choose you, and we'll see if it works. I don't know. Didn't. Okay, so.
You need the brackets.
Yeah, maybe I need the ng source. Yes, I'm sorry. Good job. All right, so I got to take a picture again. Yada yada. Here's this sad little guy here. Let's see if it works. No? Okay. So I'm doing something wrong. Let's debug. This is the other good part. So I'm going to fire this thing up, and I have the iOS simulator. I can access that. And I have a console. And get to the scripts. And I have controllers somewhere. Oops, want that. I'm gonna let's put a breakpoint there, and image URI. And oh, the other thing we can do is on the actual page we can actually just output the image URI. So we'll just image URI. Okay. Okay. I'll go back over here, and we got to grab that picture again. Okay, so what am I getting back? Am I getting back image data? Yeah, I am. I'm getting back a file. Oh, I remember what I did wrong. Live reload, because it's a server, messes up cross-origin remote. Yeah, so so doggone it, I can't use live reload for this. And you know what? I even have this in my notes. So there, starting with that. Yeah. So yeah. All right, so let's just start it up again. All right, let's see if we can do this. Sad puppy. Yay, okay. So it's a really low resolution. I asked for a 100 pixel wide image, so instead of the full thing. So he's like a sad low res kind of thing. So yes, very sad. Oh, do I have a breakpoint on still? No. Stop. So I can ask for, 500 by 500 or something, and I'd get a better image. So now this is the old way. Like if I didn't have, since I don't have live reload, I got to restart the emulator to basically pull this stuff back in. Actually, there's another way. I'll show you. So I can get a camera and take a picture. And now I get a high res sad puppy. So. And then if I did make a change, say I did make a change and I didn't want to have to do all this stuff I'm doing, I can go to resource. See that little button right there? So I can actually use that. So I can say, okay, go here and take a picture. I'll do this. Choose a picture instead of take a picture, because I can't use the camera right now. It's not accessible here. So so I'll change it from choose a picture, and then I can go over here and I can reload that guy. Oh, no, it's not going to work for me. No, why isn't it refreshing? Maybe it won't. The camera's not accessible in the emulator. In the emulator, it won't use my camera. Yeah, only on the actual phone. Yeah. From the emulator, you only get access to a camera roll. So, and it's not letting me reload this for some reason. So maybe that's an old way to do things. Maybe they don't let you do that anymore. So the live reload is the best one. You can get away with it. Okay, so let's see where we are in my notes. So any questions about, we installed a plugin, we wired it up, and we accessed it through Angular. Specifically, I use this thing called Ng Cordova. And
Do you have to use Ng Cordova, or can you still access?
you can just access the raw Cordova libraries, but it's not.
Is there advantages to using Ng Cordova? Do they have?
Well, the one is the main is the promises. Is that the Cordova library is I mean, it's kind of plain. It's very verbose. They've just wrapped up a lot of this stuff into niceties. So, so basically, they basically have oh, too big. They've wrapped up all these plugins in this one project, so you can access them the Angular way versus the Cordova way. So, and there's a lot of really handy ones. Besides, I mean, there's a background geolocation, so it'll tell you every minute what your longitude and latitude are and stuff like that. There's the capture plugin. I don't know why they don't call it the video plugin, but it's the ability to take video, basically capture video or sound. So maybe that's why they didn't. But you can turn on the flashlight, which is, I mean, come on, come on. What else? What more do you want? So, so the ability to print, that's a kind of a handy one. And then this is the one I'm working on right now, which is the push notification stuff. So I haven't really gotten into that one, but that's the next part of our project. So, okay. Any questions about what I just did, or if it's confusing or anything? Okay, cool. If you do use plugins, Scott, you're in Cordova and you're using plugins instead of in a browser, and you want to test your app, you can use this thing called Ripple, which is a Cordova emulator of an emulator. And it actually wraps up the Cordova plugins as mock things, and then you can test against that. It's almost like a pseudo browser, and then you can test it with Protractor. Or you can, because this is how awesome the world is right now, Ng Cordova, somebody has already implemented Ng Cordova mocks. So every single plugin that's in Ng Cordova, there's a set of mocks for it that you can test against. So that's awesome. If you want to, I just include this because it's a really handy script. If you want to do something special, if you're in a browser versus if you are in Cordova, this is my if statement I use. And I say, okay, include this or include that. So there you go. So now, all the way back, we talked about the project I worked on where we had, and I only have like 5 or 10 more minutes, we reused the Angular services from the front end on the website with the Angular app. So what we basically do is the website guys and gals will work on their Angular project and kind of publish a new set of services. And I am the consumer of that set of services besides them consuming their own services. But here's a list. And some of them are just like technical kind of services. There's a Mixpanel service and a Facebook service and an analytics service. And then there's stuff that's more businessy. So our post service and the product service and some of that stuff. So I, in my app, have not written a line of code that will talk to a backend. Every single thing, every service that they've written is consumable by me as an API instead of me having to talk REST or whatever. So that's basically a REST Angular implementation. And the only difference is that they store a cookie and I use local storage. So we just had to write one service that I implement differently than they do. So they store a cookie with a token in it. I use local storage to store a token. That's it. That's the only difference. They could use local storage too, but they don't want to. So, but hey. All right. So if you would like to, I can show you that app. It is hopefully going to be going into the App Store by the end of the month. We are working furiously on it. Is this my? Okay. Yes. I misspelled Cordova. So let me show you the main website. And this is the one Chris Talent had shown for the folks that were here last month. So he's the CTO of Glamhive. And it's a way for people to share outfits and whatnot. And if you click on an outfit, it says, okay, well, here's the outfit, and here's all the items that are part of the outfit, and similar items to that, and people can comment on it and like it and all that kind of stuff. So it's fun. And here's the app. And so all the services that he uses, I can use too because I am written in Angular. And so I can do things like, oh, I want to discover new things, and it pulls up this list, and it'll download some huge images because we like things to look really nice. And so I can see these things and click on them and say, okay, well, I want to know more about this image or this outfit, and I can see the various things in it, and I can click on it and it opens up the in-app browser. So if you ever used a real native app and you click on a thing, sometimes they'll take you out to Safari, right? And sometimes they'll open up a browser right in the app. So there's actually a plugin to show the in-app browser. And this website is obviously going to show me some kind of ad or something, so I'm going to close it. But that's the idea. I can come over here and say, okay, I got 2 more likes, and it's, look, I liked my outfit I posted, so thanks for that. Very good taste in myself. And I can post a new outfit. Sure, yeah, I got a picture of a bird. And this bird is not wearing clothes, so I'll just have to search for like shirts that. So, and then I can pick out a shirt. World's okayest girlfriend. Sure, we'll do that one. And then I can make a comment on it and post it. And I'm not going to do that because they'll get like, that's not an outfit. So, so I get kind of yelled at when I post funny pictures. So, anyway, so that's that. And I can edit my profile and change. This is this is Michael Ball. He's a really big in London, like England. He's a singer, but I use his picture because he's way better looking than me. So so that's it. So I can do my normal profile editing stuff. So it looks nice, right? Looks good, yeah. And so now I'm going to tell you why it was so hard about building it, because there was some hard parts. So the good part is that, like, context switching, none, right? I'm writing Angular over here, I'm writing Angular over here, that's awesome. The model is exactly the same. I don't have to, you know, when I wrote iOS apps, I would have a model that I would build out and then get JSON, and I have to map it through this model, and I have to understand that model, and then I go look at the website and I'm like, okay, well, this is just JSON. I didn't have to map it to anything, but oh, look, I forgot a field, and just like, you know, just things like that. As we've brought developers in that are just strong in JavaScript, HTML, CSS, they're functionally working, you know, the next day, like no problem. If they know Angular, that's even better. If they understand native stuff, that's like, they're awesome. So, so what's the bad? So the services can be used, but we had to refactor them a lot to kind of break them up into smaller pieces, because on the website, somebody might get one page and they can do a ton of stuff and post a big thing. I got to like walk you through steps, you know, I got to take you through. So we had to take some bigger services and kind of break them up into smaller chunks. So it did require, I think we spent a week or two refactoring all this stuff, especially the Facebook and like authentication parts. And then now the people that are working on the services need to know that I am also a consumer of those services, so that they don't break, you know. Oh, they might see something that's kind of weird and think, well, why are we doing it that way? Let's change it to do it this way. Well, it's probably because of me. So, and then the other person is, some people do need to understand the limitations of putting an app on a mobile phone. There's CPU limitations and memory limitations, and the graphics processing is not as good. So the developers, while they're productive, sometimes have to be like, hey, you know, you just added like 3,000 watchers to this page and it's crawling. So, so this is why you wouldn't do that. So, and that's part of the ugly. So there are extreme performance considerations for running anything on a phone. And this is not just like Cordova, this is any mobile site. You have to be really careful with Angular and what you're doing on a website that is going to run a lot on the phone. So you got to try to actually avoid ng repeat. There's other directives that will loop through collections. There's like quick repeat. There's a couple others that are out there, but ng repeat can be really heavy, and you only want to use it when you're building a list of things that will change. Okay, so just save it. If you're just showing a list of things, it's always going to be there and rarely updates.
So what's your watcher target before things get out of hand? Is it like 500? Is it that low? Or?
No, it's higher than that. I would say it's probably up in the couple thousand.
Okay.
Yeah.
About the same as this.
Yeah, so. But when I get like 10,000, I'm like, oh my gosh. So, yeah. There's. When I work on stuff, I'm usually working in Chrome, and I use the Angularjs plugin, which is what Batarang, is that what it's still called? They still call it that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think they just call it the Angularjs plugin. So
Got a new one, a Chrome plugin that's better.
this is when I work. I am usually working like this. I usually grunt, connect, and then run a dev server. And then I will pick a model of a phone, and we'll get it reloaded. And this is what I'm doing. And that is actually not even the best thing. My favorite way to figure out when things are getting heavy is to use timeline. And I'll record it, and what I'm watching is the frames per second to make sure they can it still get by with 30 frames per second is kind of my goal. So I'm looking for these spikes, and I can usually see a spike. This is awesome. I can go here, I can say, why is that doing all that? And so I can kind of zero in on that one thing, and then I can look through this stack of all the stuff that's going on and figure out what's costing me a lot of, what's keeping this thing from being able to render. Sometimes it's because I fetched some data and it just happened to come back at the same time something else was happening. And I'm like, well, I don't need to render, I don't need to put that data on the scope until something else happens. So I'll keep the data in the controller as a var, and then when the user is ready to do something with it, then I'll stick it on the controller. Like usually in Angular, I'll just throw it on the scope, right? Because I'm not going to use it, but I don't want to throw stuff on the scope until I really need it, basically. So, okay, so the next thing in my tips is you do want to use animations as much as possible, because that really makes the application look native. It makes it look nice. But you need to think about what you're animating and how it's going to behave. And if you've done CSS3 animations, there's basically two ways. There's transforms and transitions, and transforms are way better as far as how they use the GPU. That's things like rotate X or slide, left and right. It's the things like when you're scrolling and fading in and stuff like that, you'll start to see your frames per second kind of drop. And if you get below 30, that's kind of a warning sign, and below 10 is choppy. So you got to be a little careful there. The other big problem is images, is really big images. Images, if they have to be resized, are really expensive for the GPU. So you want to get your images sized correctly, or within like 10% of correctly, you know what I mean? So if you're like, we're going to show this image, it's going to be about 300 pixels wide, it's okay to do 320 or whatever, let it do a little bit stretching, but you don't want to throw like a 5 megapixel, 1,000 pixel wide image in there, because it's going to just do tons of resizing, and especially if you're scrolling, it's going to just be like repaint, and that's when you start to get a lot of your flicker. So all our images come from, the way Chris set that up is they're all on CloudFront, and I basically build a URL that says I want an image that's 300 pixels wide. He builds it and caches it on the fly. So, so it's pretty cool. The next thing I have to worry about is DOM, and so it can get really bad if I'm not releasing DOM. And my major problem I ran into recently was that images were not getting garbage collected. So like a good half meg image was just sitting out there and never getting garbage collected. So I found out that what I was doing is I had added an onBind to the element, and then I was adding a class when the onload happened. I'm sorry, I added a bind for onload that added a class to fade in the images. If you see this fade in, see that fade in? It looks real good and everything, but when I would go to another view, since there's a circular reference now where I was referencing the element to add a class in the function that was bound, and so it wouldn't free them up. So I had to add onDestroys to my directive that did that. And what it does is it sets onload to null and sets the image source to a 1 pixel image. That immediately frees up the image to get garbage collected, and then the DOM element too. So that was a good one. That was a big win for me. The other thing is just in general cleaning up the DOM. So if I build a modal, I shouldn't just leave it there. I need to make sure I remove the DOM elements that were used to hold that modal. There's other thing is there's a console plugin that people kind of tend to install because they like to see all their debug logging come out, and that will kill a native app. Like you cannot have tons and tons of logging. If you ever talk to a native developer, they'll use special things that will remove their logging statements from their native code during like compile and build time. If you remove this console plugin, it basically does the same thing. All your logging statements just go nowhere instead of like buffering up. So, and then the other thing, if you do have to use ng repeats, nested ng repeats, like an ng repeat and an ng repeat, that's bad. Like that does not work well, and they know it. And there's tons of like bugs out there that have been filed about it, but it is not cool. And and it will really like eat up like the amount of CPU that your page is using. If you have to do that, try to use like Quick Repeat or something like that, or some other plugin that can, or flatten your collections out so that you can just iterate one long thing that's broken up into segments. But as far as that goes, iOS 8 is great because in iOS 8, in the UI WebView, they enabled the JIT. And right now, the JIT, the just-in-time compiler, is only in mobile Safari. And the UI WebView had it disabled, and they said it was a security thing. But they've turned it back on in iOS 8. So now you get the just-in-time compiling, which is easily, depending on the thing, it can be a 25% improvement to a 400% improvement. It's especially good when you're creating new objects, creating new instances of things is one of the big wins. And just JavaScript in general in iOS 8 has been really, really tuned to work a lot better. So if you want to check out some apps that are in the App Store, I removed the name of this one because I had a bad thing to say about it and I didn't want it to kind of get back. But there is an app out there that was recently featured in Ionic's blog, and it looks really nice in the iPhone and iPad. But if you want to see how slow an app can be, that's like the one you want to go check out. Like you want to see like how slow, painfully slow it can be. There's another one though called Songhop that's very nice, and it uses multimedia and it interacts with the iTunes store. So it fires up, and then you get to pick like your genre you like, and it'll play a song, and it's almost like Tinder for music. And you're like, I don't like that one, and it'll play a different one. And you're like, I do like that one. I'll show you some other ones like it. It's really, really well done. When I find an app like that, I can go. Say, okay, I want to see how they did some things. I can go, if you're writing your app in JavaScript and HTML and CSS and stuff, I can actually go see your code, okay? So you have to be careful about what you're putting in your app. And I have the instructions here on how to do it. You basically just find the IPA, you can unzip it, you can open up the package contents, and you get that www folder with everything in it, and you can read through it. So don't put any keys in there you don't want anybody to find out about and stuff like that. So if you do end up using it. The other thing, and I'm just about to wrap up, here's a list of the plugins that are available. I wish I had some time to talk about this, and I'd love to have somebody spend some time. If anybody wants to do a presentation, Material is a great one. They actually took the Ionic framework and all this stuff, and they spun it off into a desktop library. Okay, and it's called Material. Yes, here it is. And I won't show much of it, but it has all these like really nice things that are all Angularized that you can use in your Angular app. So it's very slick. So if anybody's wanting to do a presentation, that might be a good one too. And then if you want to build a desktop app, there's Cordova OS X, which is kind of cool. I think that would be fun to build an app that was made for the desktop, but written in HTML and JavaScript like Slack is and stuff like that. So, any questions or comments or fears? Like, anything you want me to touch on or anything? That I didn't, or if you want to talk afterwards too, I'll hang out. So, but hopefully you got something out of it. Everybody enjoyed? Okay, good. All right. I know it was a lot. So, okay. Well, I posted the link to this document on the CincyNG. So, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.